Hello Habibti, كيف انتي? Yosemite Myron. Hello my friend, how are you doing? My name is Myron, and welcome to part 2 of this Maltese language lesson series, which is all about the Maltese verbs. In today's video specifically, I'll be teaching you how to conjugate regular Maltese verbs into the past tense. In part 1 of this series, which I posted last week, I taught you some extremely important grammatical terms and rules that you need to familiarize yourself with, as they are critical for understanding this topic of Maltese verbs. So if you haven't watched that yet, go back and watch it first please, and then come back to this one, as I will be using the grammatical terms very loosely throughout the rest of the series. And if you're not aware of them, you're not really going to know what's going on here. But if you're still here, then great. I'm guessing you're ready to conjugate verbs into the past tense. So let's do this. And just for your information, we will be using the verbs to write, to dress, and to think as examples, which of course are the same verbs that we used in part 1. So for these verbs, of which their mammas are kieteb, liebes, and chaseb, aka the conjugations for what he did in the past and the words that you'll find in the dictionary, here is a table which we are about to fill in together, which will eventually include all of the 3 verbs conjugations in the past tense. On the very left of the table, you can see how there is a column for all the different pronouns in English. So we have I, you, he, she, we, you plural, and they. And then in the column just to the right of that, you can see how we have the column for all the Maltese translations of these, of which we call pronomi. So let's take a look at these. We have jena, inti, huwa, hia, achna, intom, and huma. And of course, jena means I, inti means you, huwa means he, hia means she, achna means we, intom means you if you're talking to a bigger group of people, and huma means they. Then in the columns just to the right of that, you can see how we have the columns for each verb that we are going to conjugate into the past tense. Now, contrary to how most teachers teach other European languages, the reason for why we are taking a look at the past tense first before the present and future tense is because this will make things so much easier for you, and you'll find out exactly why this is the case as we start going through it all. So let's start with the verb to write in this column here. And actually, I'm just going to make a quick suggestion here, in that you go to the description below right now, where you can download my free ebook containing 50 of the most popular Maltese words, as that will really easily elevate your Maltese language comprehension. Anyway, back to the verb to write over here. Now, do you remember what I told you about the mamma, which is of course this word here in red, kieteb? There were 2 things to remember. If you're not sure, let me remind you. The first thing is that the mamma is the dictionary version of the verb, and the second thing is that the mamma is also the verb conjugation for what he did in the past tense, which literally means that we can fill in this box right here, right now. So let's do that. So there you have it. To say he wrote in Maltese, we say kieteb, the same as the mamma. And now that we know this, we can start to work out the conjugations for the other pronouns in the past tense. And by the way, I'm always going to leave this conjugation right here highlighted to remind you that it is indeed the mamma. Anyway, let me fill in the rest of these conjugations. So to say I wrote, we say ktipt, ktipt. To say you wrote, we say ktipt as well, because that's exactly the same as I wrote. And just so you know, these 2 are always identical with each other for all verbs in the past tense. Then for he wrote, it's kieteb, as we just learned. For she wrote, it's kitbet, kitbet. For we learned, it's ktibna, ktibna. You learned, if you're talking about more than one person, is ktiptu, ktiptu. And then they learned is kitbu, kitbu. Now, I appreciate that that might seem like quite a lot to take in right now, but of course, over time and with regular practice, this will get much easier for you to understand. And to help you understand, let me just go through this with you and show you a quick pattern that's occurring. And just so you know, this is pretty much the same pattern that happens with all regular verbs in the past tense, as you will also see in a moment with these other two verbs. So first of all, I'm going to split these 7 conjugations into 2 groups. We're going to have group 1 and group 2. Okay, so let's do that very quickly. So, as you can see now, these conjugations with the number 1 beside it are in group 1, and of course these conjugations with the number 2 beside it are in group 2. And the reason for why we have done this is because group 1 have a set of characteristics that group 2 do not have, and of course vice versa. And what are those characteristics, you may ask? Well, let's take a look at group 1 first. Maybe you've already recognized it, but basically the first 2 letters are the same. Look, we have k, t, k, t, k, t, and k, t. And this is what defines group 1. And why are these letters like this? Well, we actually get them from the all-important mumma, but of course we just eat the first vowel, which is indeed the Maltese letter E right here. But what about group 2? Well, for this, you can clearly see that once again the beginning letters are the same and we get them from the mumma. Look, we have kit, kit, and kit. This is what defines group 2. And now that you're aware of this, I would now like to formally introduce you to the suffix endings for conjugations like this in the past tense by adding them in bold. There we go. So for the first person conjugation, the suffix always needs to be a t, and indeed the same goes for the inti pronoun, because as I said, these top 2 conjugations are always the same for every single verb. For kieteb, aka he wrote, I'm not actually going to say anything about the suffix because this is the mumma, and to be honest, you either know the mumma or you don't. There's no specific suffix as such. Now, for any verb that is to do with what she did, the suffix ending is et, as you can see here with kitbet. For any verb that is to do with what we did, the suffix ending is na, as you can see here with ktibna. For you plural, the suffix ending is tu, as in ktiptu, and for they, the suffix ending is u, as in kitbu. And remember, these rules apply to all conjugations for the majority of verbs in the past tense. Now, this is where I would like to bring up the again, which, if you're not sure what it is, I'd advise you to go back and watch part 1 of this verb conjugation video series, where I talk about it in a lot more detail. But essentially, the is of course the root consonants of the verbs, which in this case, the is k, t, b. And why did I want to bring this up again? Well, it's because I want you to notice how every single verb conjugation here obeys the order of the Look, k, t, b, k, t, b, k, t, b, etc., etc. Ignore the t's and the ets and the nas and the tus at the end, because these right here are just suffixes. These are outside of the mumma and it's They have nothing to do with it, okay? They are not a part of the But as far as the core verb is concerned, it must have the k, t, b in that same order. And if you ever come across a Maltese verb that has k, t, b in this order, it's highly likely that it is to do with the verb to write. Now, let's take a look at the past tense conjugations for the verb to dress in Maltese, where we can begin by filling in the what he did in the past box. And how do we do that? Well, I mean, we already know, don't we? It's the mumma right here. So, here you go. It's liebes. Now, as you can see, liebes is in group 2, as the conjugations for to dress are adjacent to those for the verb to write. So let me just illustrate the rest of these for you now to show you what I mean. Okay, there you go. So if liebes is in group 2, this means that all the other conjugations in group 2 will share very similar characteristics. More specifically, the starts of the words will look the same as in the first 3 letters. So let me just fill these in for you right now. So we have lib, lib, and lib. And to work out the remainder of them, we of course need to add the mid part of the verb as well as the suffixes. To add the mid part, we need to use the mumma, of which the letters are e and esse. And remember, this is not a suffix right here, because the mumma is just the mumma. It doesn't have a suffix. So yeah, let's add the e and the esse to these right here. There you go. And one last thing you need to do before adding the suffix is removing the vowel at the end of each verb, which in this case is the e on both of them. So once again, here you go. And now all we need to do is add the appropriate suffixes, which for hia is et, and for huma is u. So let's do that as well. So there you go once more. These are the final conjugations for she dressed and they dressed. We have lipset and lipsu. Now, I know all of that might have been quite confusing, but remember, these patterns happen on quite a significant amount of occasions with the regular verbs, and once you master them, you'll find conjugating really easy for the majority of the time. I mean, look, to get kitbet from the mumma kieteb, we copied the first 3 letters, which were k, I, and t. Then we took the mid part, which is e and b, whilst also simultaneously eating that e as it is the last vowel of the verb. And then we added the suffix for hia, which is et. And all of this is exactly what made the conjugation to be kitbet, okay? And the exact same thing happened down here for kitbu, only we added the suffix u as opposed to et. Now, let's take a look at group 1, where the beginning of each conjugation is the same as the mumma, with the only difference being the fact that we eat the first vowel. So let me insert what that looks like into each of the appropriate places on the table for you. There we go. We have le b, le b, le b, and le b. Now we need to add the mid part, which as you can see from the mumma is e and esse, just like that. And for this specific verb, we need to replace the e with an e, just like we did for I wrote and you wrote and we wrote and you wrote plural. Okay, and there we go again. And then the very last step that we have to do for these verbs is, can you guess? That's right, we need to add the appropriate suffixes. So for yena, the suffix is t, just like it is for yena ktipt. The same goes for inti, it's the equivalent to yena. Then for achna, the suffix is na, and for huma, the suffix is u. So let me add in those changes for you. Boom! And that's all of your conjugations for to dress in the Maltese past tense. We have ilbist, ilbist, liebes, liebset, ilbisna, ilbistu, liebsu. And let me just quickly mention the again, which in this case the is elle, b, esse. And once again, notice how every single conjugation here obeys the order of its Look, elle, b, esse, elle, b, esse, elle, b, esse, etc., etc. So if you ever come across a Maltese verb that has elle, b, esse in this order, it's highly likely that it is to do with the verb to dress. Now let's finally move on to our third verb, to think, where as always we will begin with what he did in the past, as that is our mumma and dictionary word, and that word is chaseb, where from here we can fill out the beginnings of the other 2 group 2 verbs. But before I do that, just keep an eye on its here, which of course is ch, esse, b. And also keep an eye out on how this appears in the same order across all the conjugations. So we have chas and chas as the beginning 3 letters. Then we will add the mid part and b, which of course we take from the mamma here, leaving us with khaseb and khaseb. Then we eat the last vowel of the verb, which is the right here, and simultaneously add the appropriate suffixes, leaving us with khazbet and khazbu. So essentially, these are both almost copies of khaseb. All that you're technically doing is removing the final vowel and adding the appropriate suffix. Now, let's take a look at conjugating group 1. To begin, we add the first couple of letters, but of course without the vowel, as that gets eaten. After they're written down, we add the mid part, and b from the mamma, but replace their with an e. And then finally, we add the appropriate suffixes. And there you have it. These are our final conjugations. We have chsibt, chsibt, khaseb, khazbet, chsibna, chsibtu, and khazbu. And yeah, hopefully you can see that there are clear patterns that are obeyed between each of these three verbs. And just to remind you one more time, these same patterns happen for the majority of verbs and their conjugations. Also, if you've been finding this lesson useful so far and want to actually take it a step further than that and be able to understand the entire Maltese language so you can finally communicate with Maltese locals and friends and family properly, go to the description below right now and click on the link so you can access my online Maltese language course. In part 3 of this verb series, which will come out next week, we will be diving right into verb conjugations again, but this time in the present and future tenses. You won't want to miss it, trust me. Grazie ħafna u narak dal-waqt.